All right, and we're back. We're here, we're going through our lifts. The previous few posts we've talked about basic squatting, basic push-up, basic overhead pressing. We're now gonna get a little fancier. And we're gonna work, first thing, with the bar, we're gonna do a front squat today. And I like to do this one next. This starts to open up our vocabulary in the gym for us triathletes. We're starting to expand and grow and be able to do more things in the gym. And once we learn how to do the front squat, it really opens us up for a lot of our Olympic lifts. This is where we receive in the clean. Plus, as I'll talk about in a second, it ups the demands on our mobility and our just general overall athletic prowess. So if we can work on our front squat and build that up, that's gonna definitely translate to some stronger swimming, cycling, and running. Now, quick review of the squatting mechanics that we did in the past. I had you guys work on initiating this movement with your hips, pushing those hips back aggressively, shoving those knees out aggressively, and going right down. We had that bar wrapped on our back, just like this. When this bar is here, as just a reminder, I've got this bar structurally supported on my back. I push my hips back, I push my knees out, that loads that hip up nicely, and then I come back up tall. Now, right now, I want to show a big difference in between my back squat and my front squat. For you strong guys out there, you power lifters out there, we know that the lifts all become more and more similar in terms of our general squat shape, but in the beginning I like to show a big difference. In the back squat, I really like to teach that big back with our hips and drop down. And as I notice that when I push my hips back aggressively, my whole chest drops forward. Right? We're going to change this up a little bit for our front squat. Now, with our front squat, we have to find the same structural support that we had on our shoulders back here. It's not supported by my hands at all. It doesn't matter if it's 45 pounds or 245 pounds. I want the same structural support here. We're going to take this, our hands will be roughly shoulder width length. I'm going to get my elbows up really nice and high. And notice, before I even lift this bar off the rack, it's already on my shoulders. So I've created this strong rack here. It's not on my wrists at all. Now, this is going to require a little bit of mobility in the shoulder and the lats. If I'm lacking this range of motion, I'm going to notice it and I'm going to start to work on it. But if I have trouble getting into this rack in my front squat, I'm going to have trouble swimming. I'm going to get a hard time getting that arm fully reached out in that externally rotated position we're looking for. So once we have that mobility thing figured out, we're going to get this up here. Now, if you just noticed before, when we squatted, I was really tipped over. And I don't have that option anymore because when I get in this rack position up here, the one thing I like to visualize and tell my new athletes is imagine that you're creating this bookshelf. Your whole body's upright, it's the bookshelf, and then my elbows here are the shelf itself that all the books sit on. If I have a nice 90-degree angle, those books stay on there easy, nothing slides off. But as soon as I tip over, my elbows drop, my chest drops, all of a sudden, these books are going to slide off and I run into trouble. Now right now, 45 pounds, I can hold on to this weight squatting this way, but all of a sudden if I have 200 pounds, it ain't going to happen anymore. So I have the problem. I have to figure out how to squat with a super upright torso. Now let's do a little problem solving here. I could say, okay, I need to keep my elbows up, but Nate said hips back, so I'm going to push my hips back anyway. So I do this. But this is a problem because if you see my back, I've put this big arch in my low back right here. We've overextended in that lumbar spine. That's no good. We need to keep things nice and neutral. So I'm like, okay, I can't push my hips back anymore. I have to keep that back straight. I'm going to let my knees go forward. So I'm here. I let my knees go forward, but then they might cave in a little bit. It feels a little bit shaky. As we talked about in our first squatting video, this is a movement fault right here because we're loading incorrectly. We still have to load those hips back first. This is not going to be very strong. It's not going to be very successful. So our last idea, we talked about that knee out position, that rotation. So if I can't push my hips back, I really can't let my knees go forward. I can let them go out. And if I let them go out, I'm able to stay on my heels. I'm able to wind my hips up very successfully and maintain this nice upright torso. So this is that position that I'm looking for. Always a little bit of a challenge, but that's what we're going for with our front squat. So front squatting and back squatting, they look a little bit different. but I'm applying the same principles. It's just some combination of hip, back, and knee out. The back squat, I'm pushing my hips back a whole lot more. That hinges me over. The front squat, this keeps me more upright. I shove those knees out, it gets me going there. So there you have it, front squatting. Try it out, add it in, and we'll catch you next week.